headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.
Stephen, welcome to breakfast. How are you?
Good morning. I'm fine. Like you, I'm a 54-year-old with an 8-year-old, so I'm in bed very early too.
Eight? They can get themselves up. 2, you get, Daddy, why? It's 5 o'clock. What's wrong with you? Yeah, listen, it keeps you young, he says with a 32-year-old. Let's not go there. Stephen, you and I would probably be of the same mindset, and yet we live in this politically correct world. How is this being allowed to happen? We are in the middle of a cost of living crisis. People are waking up hearing that it's £81 to fill their car. People can't heat their homes. And whatever the way of the world, when are we going to get to a point where we say, hold on, we need to look after our own? I know it's awful and deadly and dreadful, but come on.
Well, this year the bill for just the channel migrants coming into the country is going to be around 3 billion. Think about that number. 3 billion when our old age pensioners are not being able to heat their houses. £4.7 million a night to house them in our hotels. That's in addition to a contract, Jeremy, that's 4.5 billion over 10 years for 3 companies to house them in longer term accommodation. And when they do get their asylum applications granted, that then moves on to the councils to find them accommodation too. That's just on the accommodation side. So are we going to get a grip to it? The answer is no, because the reality is there is no political will really at the top to actually deal with this, not whether it's in this country or whether in the European Union.
Well, but this example I gave you this morning was glamorising this trip. And let's make the point before people jump up and down. It's an incredibly perilous journey. And it's not something that can be glamorised. But, in Italy, if you're waking up this morning and these people are then, selfies from the front of the Eiffel Tower and spending sprees with BMWs, I mean, this is absolutely disgusting. The problem that you and I would have, and I'm very open to everybody's opinion on this morning, please. The problem that I have with this, Stephen, is I don't live in a war-torn country. I cannot imagine being in that position, and I feel massively sorry for all of these people. But something needs to be done to balance making it safe for these people, doing something as a world that is practical to help these people, but also taking into consideration, before the left jumps up and down and bashes me over the head, that you can't afford to keep paying for everybody else for everything when you can't afford to pay for your own people. Sorry. And if that's unpopular, it might well be. It's a fact.
Well, the fact is that they're making fun out of us. They're actually taking the Mikey out of everybody who is a serious asylum applicant who is struggling in some countries. And that is first and foremost. But secondly, it makes a really important point here, Jeremy, how easy it is to be able to cross borders. And if you want to be able to pay people traffickers to do it now, it is almost like as easy as picking up a phone and saying, I'd like to go from Afghanistan to Calais, please.
Why isn't that quashed? Why aren't governments across Europe quashing these revolting human beings who are making millions of pounds out of trying to, take advantage of vulnerable people?
Well, it's hard for me to say this, but the research that we're currently undertaking, you probably see quite a lot of it at the back over the channel migrants, is that we're estimating that what I'm going to term the migrant industry in the UK now is worth £250 million a year.
The migrant industry. Imagine that as a sentence.
Yes, because you get them all from organisations that, I've got one organisation that receives £100 million from the government to be able to give migrant advice. So on the one hand, the government is saying that we're reducing the amount of legal aid for those illegally coming over to the country. Yet on the other hand, they gave £100 million to provide legal advice and advice to migrants as they've arrived here as asylum applicants. And that's then distributed down to about 137 other migrant advisory organisations around the country, the Migrant Advisory Network. You have the lawyers receiving about £22 million in legal aid. That's excluding the costs to courts, for example. So it builds up housing, legal costs, education, health, and they know they can get it here. And when you look at these 2 TikTok so-called stars who are now making not only money out of this trip, it also should be embarrassing to the government to realise that people can slip in so easily. Could there have been terrorists? Yes, we know that. We look at the Liverpool bomber. He failed his asylum 7 times and we never got rid of him. We know that there were other crimes that have been committed. I'm looking at one at the moment, which I had a Freedom of Information request refused from the Home Office this morning about a Bolton hotel being used for an asylum applicant who has abused children outside of school. And yet I have the same information from the MP up there telling us that that hotel is one being used by migrants, yet the Home Office are refusing, saying they can't announce the hotel.
Do you know what I don't understand, Steve, right? This is, and I get the people who will say you and I are being harsh, but I'm afraid everybody's entitled to their opinion. This is what I don't understand. This government, and this is a political comment, but it's quite interesting, isn't it? We were talking and have been all morning about the Ukraine situation, how the rhetoric has moved away from Partygate. One of the biggest criticisms of Boris Johnson and his tenure of Number 10 is that the people who voted for a Conservative government, you know, low taxation, strong on immigration, law and order, all that, they haven't got that. They've got this man who spends money we haven't got, who's trying to force through a green agenda. Immigration, for the first time ever in 2019 at the general election, was front and centre, as it should have been for many, many years, but the political correct didn't want anybody to say that. And it's almost as if it was an easy flag to wave from the Conservatives, and nothing has gone on. Priti Patel's new plans to tackle immigration, what are they? I haven't heard about them. This was supposed to be central to their legislation. I'm thinking, and I could be totally wrong, that as his back is to the wall and he seems to have ended, COVID's gone, with all of those things are not happening, maybe he'll finally do something. But I do think, what is it? Oh, it's going to cost $2.7 billion. Her plans to tackle migration is set to cost an extra $2.7 billion. I want to know what we're getting for that. I just guess I have great sympathy with the people. I'm not with those two TikTok influencers. They should be thrown out. But I do think we have to harden up, and I think we need to sort it out, don't you?
I certainly do, and I believe that the public want that too.
Yeah.
And there are real big concerns for the Conservatives who were elected in the north of England and the Midlands, where this was a massive issue, part of Brexit, and they are beginning to put pressure on Boris Johnson. I'm not surprised, because those voters aren't going to take it anymore. But the problem for most of the voters in the research that we're doing and the conversations that we have is that they have absolutely no faith in any of the other political parties. If they think that Boris Johnson's Conservative Party is bad on controlling migration, they actually think that the Labour Party would flood the country as they did so under Tony Blair. They would open it up again back into the European Union in some way to allow freedom of movement too. And so this is really the dilemma for people, and they're becoming exasperated. They're becoming forlorn about this. And in a sense, they're giving up. And I think that's what governments want. They want them just to accept these mass numbers, which work for large corporates who are superb at this. It works for the other part of the immigration industry, which is this kind of intellectual elite that sits at the United Nations, top to the European Union migration organisations. They're the ones who really want to keep it open.
Stephen, always a pleasure, never a chore. Really love speaking to you.
Good talk.
Hot talk. Bold talk. Talk radio.
Listen on your smart speaker.
Watch it live on your smart TV.
The world headquarters of common sense.
Talk Radio.